What's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stickity Stacks in this thing, baby, representing Team Keys of Games. And today I'm coming at you guys with an updated ZEFRA list for this current format. And to be honest, you guys, this ain't no clickbait or overhyping. I really think this deck is crazy, especially this format, because like the ZEFRA cards beat so many decks right now. And when your main deck inherently has win conditions that you really don't need to work too hard to get access to, and when you have multiple win conditions at that and backup plans, when you can combo through a lot of different crazy situations through specific hand traps that normally beat other Pendulum decks, when your inboard cannot be Nibiru'd or Gamut in the process of you comboing, and on top of that, when certain equalizer cards that normally get side decked against combo decks do not beat you, I really think that's crazy. I think this deck has a ridiculously high ceiling. It has unbreakable boards. I just can't think of any combination of cards that just beats the boards this deck can break. The strongest board, I'm going to get into the profile, but I'll talk about the in boards really quick, because those are the win conditions. The strongest board that this deck can make requires double tuner access, and basically you need 2 level 6s. So you either need double ZEFRA, or if you gamma your opponent when they try to hand trap one of your starter spells, that makes it so much easier. You're just going to get to that board, because Gamma literally puts a tuner and a level 6, and that's already, you just need ZEFRA, ZEFRAXI, and extra body, and the combo that you're going to do basically puts out VFD, Borload Savage, Head of the Arclight, and ZEFRA Divine Strike. Even if your opponent has a Forbidden Droplets to try to discard a trap to prevent your counter trap, you could still negate it with one of your monsters due to the simple fact that Head of the Arclight is up on the field, so they cannot send monster to try to prevent you from responding. So there's no way to stop VFD from activating on your opponent's draw phase, which means they can't play through Arclight, Savage, and Divine Strike in order to stop VFD. And after VFD resolves, it doesn't even matter if they have Spear Mode, because I still put them under VFD and I have a counter trap plus a load of follow-ups. So I think that this deck is just really crazy. And you don't even have to go that route. This deck can have balanced inboards that still win and don't lose to a lot of hand traps. But it's up to you. With this list, you're going to learn that you can, it's like when I play Shaddolls, you can combo if you want to, but you don't have to combo to win. You could still just set up Abyss Dweller, ZEFRA with Path, and basically have Divine Strike, Searching, ZEFRA War, which is 2 interruptions, ZEFRA Path, a crazy Floodgate that beats so many decks. I could make a list of the decks that ZEFRA Path beats, and then Abyss Dweller, which is going to beat pretty much everything else ZEFRA Path doesn't beat. Which is crazy. That's another really simple board, and you can do that with the ZEFRA Path up, which means you don't have to worry about Nib or Gamma, which is a really, really cool interaction that will come up. So this deck is crazy. There's Shin control, there's obviously Chow Fein control, there's multiple win conditions including in the extra deck. Outside of VFD, you've got Arclight Savage boards, that must be... Oh, I don't know whose number that is. That's the 813 number. You've got Arclight Savage boards with the Abyss Dweller and the counter trap. If you play against any Earth-based decks, you just set up Chow Fein with counter traps. Shin control against decks that need their cards to touch the grave. On the top of my mind, I can think of Prank Kids, Salmon Greats, and Eldritch. There's a lot of ways that this deck just wins, and it doesn't have to play into a lot to get the job done. So I think this deck's crazy. It has a ridiculously high ceiling, if you ask me. So let's get into the profile. Checking timer here. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the ZEFRA cards, because the ZEFRA cards are honestly the best cards in this deck. The ZEFRA cards are really, really strong. Best Pendulum deck, if you ask me, to be honest. It doesn't have the same inherent weaknesses that most Pendulum decks have, and this deck will always have a follow-up, which I think is really important when you're playing a combo deck, to always have a follow-up, no matter how crazy your board is. So 3 Anger Translators. This card is a +2 every turn. Because every turn, you're going to basically be able to... Well, not every turn. Once you run out of ZEFRA News, it's no longer a +2. But you're normally going to be using ZEFRA Windy to add the ZEFRA News from the extra deck anyway. So every turn, you're getting a +2. But literally pendulum summoning a ZEFRA New and basically using his effect to search a card. And if you go Providence, you can get what you want. And you're basically just going to get a free body and a free card to hand every turn, plus your draw. So you're getting 3 cards in rotation, which I think is crazy. This card is ridiculously good. I think it's the best Pendulum skill in the game. It plus ZEFRA Windy has the same utility as Electromite. So this deck can do what Electromite does, just minus the draw, but Oracle of ZEFRA lets you draw anyways. So this deck's just really consistent. I love it so much. This card is your high or your low scale, so you can't really brick if you see him. Only time you brick if you see ZEFRA is if you draw no other Pendulum monster. And then we have 3 copies of ZEFRA. This card snowballs out of control. It's a 26 booty. You can get a search on your turn and a search on your opponent's turn. That's how you can out-resource other decks. You can force the game state to be simplified because VFD is really hard to beat. As well as just Savage, Arclight, Counter Trap, Hand Traps. And I typically, if I can, I like to smack Abyss Dweller in the process of doing that combo, because I feel like Dweller and Herald of the Arclight are like really strong together, because Arclight is the floodgate to stop cards from hand and main deck from being like able to touch the grave, and if they could play around the Arclight, the Dweller normally can stop their play. So like if you have Arclight, Dweller, I just don't think that Dino can beat those two, like in general, like they just end their turn. And then you still have the 2 more Omni Negates to back it up. And if you want to protect Arclight from being attacked over, you could just search for ZEFRA War instead of ZEFRA Divine Strike. And that way, if they like summon a monster to attack over the Arclight, you could wait for them to enter battle phase, and on that attack declaration, drop the ZEFRA War to pop it. But anyway, ZEFRA Neo is the lifeblood of the deck. It's extremely important. But I do think that, yes, this is a pure ZEFRA list, but I want to say this to other ZEFRA players. If your list is so fixated and focused on ZEFRA Path, I do main deck it because it's a crazy card. But if you're so fixated on ZEFRA Path, your deck basically is ZEFRA Neo or ZEFRA Providence or Bust. And in a format where your opponent could be playing so many hand traps, and I mean a myriad of them, you can't be affording to make your strategy so focused on ZEFRA Neo resolving. Granted, yes, you can chain block with it in certain hands where it dodges Ash and Gamma inherently, and it only would lose to Imperm or Veiler. You still just have to keep that in mind that, like I said in the beginning of my video, I have multiple win conditions. So if this gets Imperm and I can't get access to ZEFRA Path, I'm cool with it because I have the Needle Fiber combo. If that gets hand trapped, I'm cool with it because at the end of the day, I could still make like an Appaloosa, or if I had ZEFRA Providence in my hand, I could still go for the path route anyways. So you always want to have a lot of backups and try to make your list able to force as many hand traps and negates and interruptions as possible. And that's what my list does. I have a lot of baits and then a lot of strong cards that must be negated. Because if they don't hand trap ZEFRA Neo, because they want to hold their hand trap for the Needle Fiber combo once they see I'm playing it, then they'll lose to ZEFRA Path once they hand trap the Needle Fiber combo, because I'll just activate Path and put everything back that's not a ZEFRA, and then if they're losing to that, they're still losing. So I love how the ZEFRAs just interact with hand traps and the gates and stuff like that. I do play 3 ZEFRAXI. ZEFRAXI is pretty crazy. I bumped it to 3. Just hard drawing this card plays through hand traps, because some of your cards that typically search it, if you don't have like Gamma in hand, or you control like a Gallant Granite and they like hand trap the Granite, like a Veiler Imperm, then they like Ash your Oracle. If you already have this in hand, you're already gonna, like, if you open up like the nuts in this deck, your opponent could throw 2 or 3 hand traps your way, and you could still VFD combo under that or through that. And if you find a way to get ZEFRA Path first, you can do the VFD combo under the safety net of dodging Gamma and Nib, since they cannot be used unless your opponent literally drew Driver in their hand, and that's the one exception for Gamma. Anyways, these are the 9 most important ZEFRA monsters for comboing. But there are some ZEFRA monsters that can be better given in certain circumstances. Like, for me personally, I bumped ZEFRA Thubin up to 3 because I actually love this card. So, believe it or not, this card outs the Buster Lock just by simply Pendulum summoning him from your hand and chain blocking. So you just need to summon any other monster that gets its effect on summon. And now, a Dragon Link player that does not have a Infinite Impermanence or an Effect Veiler cannot use Arclight or Savage to negate Chain Link 1. That's how chain blocking works. So you could target the monster that has the Buster Lock equipped to it and just destroy that monster. And now you can play with your extra deck, which makes it a lot easier to break your opponent's board, believe it or not. Especially if you had ZEFRAXI and ZEFRA Neo coming out, and they were thinking, because like at first you could go like declare your Chain Link so they know what they can and can't negate. But if you could protect ZEFRAXI, and worst case scenario, ZEFRA Neo goes, at least now, after you out the Buster Lock, you have the Needle Fiber combo. And there's like a lot more ways that you can out those boards. Because I play more copies of ZEFRA War, so ZEFRA War and ZEFRA Thubin will help you to play into those boards better. But long story short, just summoning him as Chain Link 1 outs the Buster Lock. And I think that's really important to know that your main deck has outs to the Buster Lock. So this is a really strong strategy if you ask me. It's not just a control deck, it's a combo deck and a control deck. That's why it is, in my opinion, the embodiment of what a mid-range deck should be. Mid-range decks are not slow decks. Like, I don't like when people call mid-range decks slow decks. Because for me, what I believe is the perfect mid-range deck is a deck that doesn't have to play like a combo deck, but it can play like a combo deck if it wants to. So you get the best of both worlds. You can play a slower, grindier match, and you can just outgrind your opponent with ZEFRA and your counter traps and your hand traps and all of your utility cards. Or you can just go wombo combo and summon like nearly unbreakable boards and still have backup plans, because you have so many extra deck monsters that are win conditions that if one board fails and you survive, you can just set up another board, and that's what I love about this deck. But this card is crazy. It is a spell speed 1 Trident, and you can get it every turn. So this also helps to wither your opponent of their resources, because every turn you're being able to pop a card, and I think that's nuts. And I also play 2 ZEFRA Saiton. This card hits any set cards, being a monster or a spell or trap. This helps you against the grindier matchups like the back row decks. These cards alone are really good against Zodiacs. And to be honest, with like ZEFRA Path and ZEFRA Providence, you have like really good matchups all across the board in my opinion. But these cards just are extremely good. These help you to play into the boards better, along with the ZEFRA War. And then obviously the Needle Fiber combo. You don't always need it to resolve. You just want to use it to force the hand trap. Because if it does resolve, it's kind of crazy. And then ZEFRA Windy is an MVP. She is part of she's a huge part of this strategy, not just for the grind game, but just searching her every chance you get it just makes your life easier, because then you can normal her, add from extra deck, link her off, pendulum summon her, and add from extra deck. And then now every turn, basically, you'll be able to generate like a +3 instead of a +2 as long as you play your cards correctly. And then finally, for the last ZEFRA monster, I play 1 copy of ZEFRA Cord. This is searchable off of Gallant Granite. So one of the main reasons why I play him is, for one, I like to search a skill off Gallant if I already see Anger Translator access, or he's a level 4 body for Abyss Dweller, or just an additional body I can pendulum summon, because you can't pendulum summon Nibiru, but I do search Nibiru sometimes, just so that like my board is that crazy. Like if my board was that nuts, like if I could set up the full board, like the nutty board, like VFD and all the other negates, and I have Nibiru in hand, I don't know who in their right mind would not scoop. Because there's no way they're outing that board, and then they have to play into Nib to even try. So at the end of the day, if they somehow miraculously pull it out their butt crack, and they, like, I don't know, for some reason, like, find a way to kaiju me in their draw phase, which is impossible, to out Herald of the Arclight and then droplets me, like, if that just some miracle happens, they're still going to lose to Nib plus the counter trap. Because Nib plus counter trap in this deck, you guys have to understand, there's no combo deck that can beat that. You can, if you open Nib in this deck because you have searchable counter traps, I think this deck has the strongest Nibiru interaction out of every single deck right now in the game. And you guys can think I'm capping, but I'm not. Because Nib plus a counter trap is different than Nib plus Trident. It's different than Nib plus Savage, or Nib plus Chuchi, or Nibiru plus Gamma, Nibiru plus Imperm. A counter trap is a spell speed 3, brother. I can hold my Nibiru to the very end of their combo, and then just activate Nib, even if they have Savage, Arclight, all kinds of other negators. Obviously, you can make the read if they're going to try to force the counter trap out, but basically Nib plus counter trap is just like GG against combo. Like, if they can play through it, it's totally fine, because you normally have more interruptions than that, but just that alone is good enough. But this card also allows you to summon any ZEFRA from your Pendulum Scale, which does help you to link climb into cards like Boral Sword, summon Abyss Dweller. It helps you in your Needle Fiber combos. It's just really, really strong. And I still play Dark Worm and Gate 0. I don't activate Gate if I know I'm going for ZEFRA Path, but I love this because it's a +1 engine that also is Gallant Granite Turbo, and I have a lot of Gallant Granite Turbo cards because, like I said, I try to force out as many hand traps as possible, and Gallant Granite, before I Pendulum Summon, opens up a lot of routes and avenues for me to exploit in the terms of my inboard, and also just getting me more consistency to see Anger Translator, because at the end of the day, this is the best card in your deck, and you want to see it as often as possible. Like, your Searchers could be considered the best because they equal out to this, but this is a card you're going to want to see all the time. So now, getting into my consistency cards, which is like more of the gas, I play 3 Mageline and 1 Pet. These equal out to just more Anger Translators. Anger Translator equals ZEFRA Neo. So this also, Mageline equals ZEFRA Path or Divine Strike. Mageline equals VFD combo. Mageline equals, basically Needle Fiber combo, because it just fixes your hand. It gives you the missing piece that you need, because that's what you need all the time, Anger Translator. If you already had them, search Nibiru. Like, your opponent, just because they know you have Nibiru, doesn't change anything. Because a smart player plays around Nib, whether you have it or not. You having it in your hand just makes it more scary, because they know that you have it, so they cannot take any risks. because they know you have an Omni Negate counter trap on top of whatever you have. And you're only going to drop the nib if they break your board. So it just says, even if they succeed in breaking your board, you will drop the nib. And that's why it's smart to hold the counter trap, so that if your board gets threatened and they actually are just crazy enough to break it, you just drop the nib and flip the counter trap. And that will just put them right back on reset. And then I do play 3 ZEFRA Providence. What I love about drawing this card is it inherently helps the deck to play through hand traps. Because if ZEFRA ever gets impermed or Veilered, and I have this in hand, I can just search out the ZEFRA path anyways. And that card just beats so many decks. It's just crazy. And then we have 3 copies of Oracle. Thank you, Lord Jesus. This is the best field spell in the game. It has 5 effects. I can use 3 of the 5, and that's good enough for me right now. This card allows you to search any monster in the game, which is actually broken. People really just... I know that ZEFRAs are very underrepresented, but I personally believe that people, if they just knew how to play this deck right, this deck would be so popular. Like, in the OCG, it's extremely popular. It's more popular than any other Pendulum deck, in my opinion. Well, it's not just my opinion. It's actually representation, too. Because, I see ZEFRAs all over the place. To this day, ZEFRAs are relevant in OCG. And I think because, they are a bit smarter than the TCG, and they know, I just feel like they know their stuff better, and they understand how good this deck is. And this field spell alone, its ceiling, it just gives this deck a higher ceiling. Because, post-siding, there are cards that are, auto-win cards, like Dimensional Shifter and Lancia, and you could search those out on your first turn, so you could search all of your hand traps. And when we get there, I'll explain how all of my hand traps are searchable, not just through this. So this card is crazy. And then I play 1 Optimus Prime, 1 set rotation. This is a better Oracle sometimes because it turns off infinite impermanence and evenly, and not Lightning Storm, but just and evenly match as well. Even though those cards typically would be negated, it's just nice. And that also means your VFD combo is even stronger because they can't imperm and force another one of your negates. To be honest, it doesn't matter because you'll negate the imperm anyways, but it's just nice to know that now the imperm's dead. So I feel like this is just a better terraforming. And then we have 1 Dragon's Ravine. It's another Gallant Granite Turbo, and it's a better set rotation target that I can actually use as a combo piece if I ever draw it. And then finally, for the last of the consistency cards, because this is all gas, is Shrine and Foolish. You either dump the Dark Worm off these, or Foolish dump ZEFRA Core. And what these cards do is basically they allow you to search your Anger Translator in the process of getting a low scale. So if you open Dragon Shrine plus a level 4, that's low scale and high scale. If you open Dragon Shrine plus Madoche Magileine, that's a 2-card combo. 2 cards get you a high scale, a low scale, a Appaloosa for 3, and an Omni Negate counter trap off 2 cards. So you go plus so much in this deck. And that's one of the reasons why, even though I play ZEFRA Path, I still like the Dark Worm engine. Because like I said earlier, if I'm going for ZEFRA Path, I won't scale gate 0. But if I don't have a low scale ZEFRA, or if I have a high scale and I can just make him the low scale, but if that situation is not a possibility, then I'll just go for gate 0. Because you don't need ZEFRA Path to win, and that's what I was trying to explain earlier. It's just another win condition, but it's not the end all be all. If you don't get it, you can't win. This deck's really good. I think it's the best Pendulum deck. And I think its in-board is better than the other Pendulum decks can put up. That's just me. It's pretty biased if you ask me, but I don't know what Pendulum deck right now can put up VFD, Savage, Arclight, Counter Trap. I just think that's better than Odd Eyes Vortex, Endymion, Jackal King, and IP Masquerena with Celine. I think that's better than all that because those boards I can still lose to weird sacky hands. They can still be Spear Moded and stuff like that. But if I VFD you and you have a Spear Mode or a Lava Golem or a Kaiju, it just doesn't work. Even if the Pendulum builds are still playing Magician's Rest Stage, which that's not really popular anymore, and they have that 1 Q out to Dark Ruler, just keep in mind, you'll get sacked. You'll get sacked by so many different combinations of Equalizer cards, but this deck's board is better than those boards, and it doesn't lose to the cards that those boards lose to. So we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, and then 19, and then the ZEFRA New makes 22. So you basically have 22 ways to get access to whatever ZEFRA card that you want. Because Gallant Granite equals out to ZEFRA, my Anger Translator. Anger Translator equals out to ZEFRA New. ZEFRA New equals out to Providence or anything. It's just crazy. So all these are consistency cards in the terms that these cards make your hand able to search whatever you want in the ZEFRA archetype. That also means that when you see these cards, you typically can full combo if you want to. I don't always full combo. I just love to do that. 3, 6, 9, 12. Because especially in game 1 when you don't have to, your opponent will think you're playing like a grindy control deck, and that's why this deck is very difficult to side deck against, because they'll side in like Cosmic Cyclones and Evenlies. They'll be like, oh, he's just playing like counter traps and like ZEFRA Path, and let's just try to like out his board that way. And then after that, like you side, like you don't even like have to side that heavy, but after that you start playing it like a combo deck, and they're like, what the heck, bro? Like I have all these cards to counter control decks, and now you're setting up VFD and all this other crap. Like, and on top of that, you'll still have your hand traps and your traps, even if your board gets spear moded, which that card's not that popular anyways. So now let's get into the hand traps. We're on 3 nib. Gamma's actually really crazy in this deck because it's a combo piece. It's searchable through so many different ways. It's also the reason why you can needle fiber combo without any bricks, because your hand trap is your combo piece. And in addition to that, once your opponent gets gammaed once on a starter spell, they will be really scared to ever hand trap you. And I think any smart player wouldn't hand trap somebody when they control no monsters, just because of how popular this card is. So this card also, it adds to the mind games to this extent. Now, my ZEFRA Providence, even if I don't have Gamma in hand, when I activate it and I control no monsters, it won't get hand trapped. It will resolve. My Oracle will resolve. So now I can activate all my power spells, and my opponent will hold their hand trap for when I summon out like ZEFRA Neo or any monsters, so that way they're not playing into Gamma. So I love what this card offers for this deck, and if I ever Gamma somebody on one of my power plays, I actually get the full Needle Fiber combo. Not like the full, but I get the Needle Fiber off the Gamma, which helps me to make the VFD board. Because if I resolve this on my opponent, I can get the VFD board as long as my hand was not a brick hand. But typically, if they were able to hand trap me while I had a Gamma, it was a good hand. And then 3 Ash. This is also extremely important as a combo piece because it's a tuner that I can summon out. So this is searchable through Gallant Granite and Oracle of ZEFRA. This is searchable through Chao Feng, Oracle of ZEFRA, and this is searchable through Cypher and Gear Lambda, Chao Feng, the Phantom of the Yangzing, and Oracle of ZEFRA. And you can still search this while you have monsters because you can make Lambda, and I love doing that. Some cool things I used to do was I would summon Gamma off Lambda, like on my opponent's turn while I control monsters, use IP Masquerena to like link with the driver and go into another link. And then basically when the Gamma banishes itself, I search another Gamma and driver's in grade. You could also do that on your first turn, but I think it's better to do the Needle Fiber combo. Even if you're playing against a deck like where you know they have a lot of hand traps, you just want to force as many as you possibly can. Because at the end of the day, if you could just get ZEFRA Path plus a counter trap, that still beats a lot of decks. And then finally, the Sky Stack. This is just part of the VFD combo. It's a really strong card. You hate to draw it, but it's really important. Then I played 1 ZEFRA Path. I think this is all you need. This card already protects itself, and basically the only way to out it, if you have ZEFRA Providence engraved, and you have counter traps, the only way you can out it, because it's already going to be protected from targeting and destruction, and you have Omni Negates, is you have to find a way to destroy one of my scales for it to destroy itself. I say good luck with that, because I have ZEFRA Providence to protect my scales and Omni Negate counter traps. So this is a really powerful floodgate, because it's just like so hard to out. You can't Cosmic Cyclone my scale, because it says if one of your Pendulum Zone, a card in your Pendulum Zone is destroyed, it destroys itself. So Cosmic Cyclone does not out this card, and this card does not get outed by Cyclone itself because it can't be targeted. And basically the only special summoning both of us can do is from hand and extra deck. That is literally the Pendulum mechanic. You Pendulum summon from hand and extra deck, and the VFD combo happens from hand and extra deck. The Needle Fiber combo is a win more. You don't need it to win, but I love baiting hand traps with it. And then basically, especially if you have tuner access, you can go on the link cross and then force more hand traps. Because at the end of the day, if they lose the path, it doesn't matter how many hand traps they throw at you. Activating this just wins the game. And then these are basically like the hand traps plus the searchable interruptions and floodgates. So let me check timer. Okay, cool. So I'm on 3 war because I actually like this card. Being able to play into boards better really helps me as far as my ceiling goes going second. It's an inherent out to so many problematic cards, and one of my favorite things to do with this is actually just target Oracle of ZEFRA and then just get a free pop. Or you could just banish Providence, or you can pop ZEFRA Neo and get a search in the process of outing a card. I think cards that destroy cards in the field or just remove cards off the field are sometimes better than negators, because negates are kind of easier to play around when you're playing combo, but when you like literally target their Link 2 or their tuner or anything like that and you just get rid of it, it makes it harder for them to bait your negates in the first place because they're losing the resources that they use to try to force the negates out. And these cards are just crazy. I love 9 Pillars. It's one of my favorite traps in the game right now. For extra, I'm on Needle, Lambda. This is a proxy for Link Cross, so Cross Sheep is Link Cross. Lambda is really strong in this deck, especially when you have Gamma in hand and you summon this and try to combo. At least now, like even if you didn't get ZEFRA Path, you still have a way to protect yourself from the high impact hand traps. ZEFRA Metaltron, Appaloosa. Appaloosa is crazy. There's so many 2-card combinations in this deck, like believe it or not, and there's not very many Pendulum decks that have 2-card combos. It's normally like 4 cards, 3 cards, their entire hand. And I'm not gonna lie, this deck has combos where you can use your entire hand. The only time I do that is if I can get a follow-up in the process, because I just don't like throwing all my resources into one board. Even if the board could win, it's just the risk that my board gets nibbed and I didn't have the card to stop nib. I hate that. But Appaloosa is crazy in this deck, and I chose Warlord over Axis Skull Tonker because it's easier to get game with this than it is to get with Axis Skull, to be honest. And then I play Ravenous. This card is really good against Zoo. It's really good against Prank Kid. It's really good against like a lot of decks right now. This can be a win condition in itself. Shin Shin beats so many decks right now. This is my proxy for Chao Feng. The Phantom of the Yangzing, level 9, beats all the Earth decks. And if you play against Earth decks, you kill them by battle, and you summon ZEFRA Neos and Zefraxes, and you just generate more advantage. So this is a tempo swing card, and it also searches for your tuners, which means this is a floodgate that also gets hand traps, which is broken. And this is my proxy for Boilo Savage. My Savage, I lent it to my friend Valente, and I'm just waiting for him to give it back. And then Herald of the Arclight, the Metal Marcher, because your Needle Fiber combo is basically summon Gamma with the off of Needle with the ZEFRA Neo. Every hand you're pretty much summoning ZEFRA Neo unless you bricked, which means you're probably not summoning Noodle. So you summon Gamma, then you turn it into Link Cross, token, Gamma plus Marcher into Marcher. Gamma plus token into Marcher. Marcher bring back Gamma. Marcher plus token into Herald. Gamma plus ZEFRA Neo into Warlord Savage. And that just makes your board like really, really strong. Because to be honest, sometimes you do need those boards. Like if the deck does not lose to ZEFRA Path, you kind of need to like combo off. But I love that the simple fact that this deck can combo when it needs to, but I choose not to, which is crazy. I only do it when it's absolutely necessary, so I just love it. It's the perfect deck for me. VFD, Gallant Granite, and Abyss Dweller for the XYZs. All of these can be win cons. This could be a win con itself, because if a deck can't beat Nibiru, you search Nibiru. If they can't beat Dweller, you summon Dweller. No, I don't think anything can beat VFD except for control decks, but I am a control deck, so I beat them too. Like, I beat them at what they're trying to do, because I do it better, and I can combo too. For siding, I side Lancia and Shifter. These cards in turns. Dino cannot beat either one of these, so you can side in all 6 of these against Dino, to be honest, and either one is fine. You play Pendulum, so you don't care about your grave, and you just side out the Dragon Shrines and the Dragon Ravines and stuff, so that you don't draw dead cards on the Shifter. The only time cards would touch the grave in this deck is when you go into Link monsters and Link Climb, or if you XYZ and detach. Other than that, your Pendulum resources don't touch the grave. Another Shifter, just always remember that Pendulum monsters do not go to the face of extra deck, they go to the Banish Zone. Don't forget that, don't be cheated. 3 Twin, 3 Evenly. For back row control decks, and this is crazy against everything right now except my deck and a few others. And then we have 9 Pillars, ZEFRA Divine Strike. I like backups of these. And then Pankratops is crazy. And that's going to be the profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It's very informative and in-depth. But it's ZEFRA's. I feel like it's important for people to get their knowledge. Get your session in off of this deck profile. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Be easy. Stay positive. Don't be attacking people. Forcing your opinions on them. God bless you guys. Jesus loves you. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. And deuces.